In 1982, Byron Preiss published a book called The Secret, a treasure hunt. It was a fantasy puzzle book that combined 12 short verses and 12 paintings illustrated by John Jude Palancar. Each painting is to be combined with a verse to help find the ceramic containers buried throughout North America. Inside each plastic box is a ceramic cask containing a key that can be redeemed for a jewel. One of the casks was found in Chicago in 1983. One was found in Cleveland in 2004, and the last one was found in Boston in 2019. The remaining 9 casks have not been found or claimed yet. Prophetically, Byron said, "If I die by getting hit by a truck or something, one person has been instructed to open the directions to the remaining treasures. They are locked away in a bank vault." (1997). The Illusion CD is published by Byron Preiss Multimedia and Simon & Schuster Interactive. The interactive CD was produced by Jeremiah Zinn. It's a collection of puzzles and lessons on the way we see. The disc includes several hands-on activities that keep the physical world in sight. 1998. Our story begins during the month of November 1998 when my ex-girlfriend and I got our first apartment together. We took over the lease from a friend of mine from high school. Joe was able to confirm the date that we moved in by his son's birthday. Him and his wife, Darlene, moved shortly after their son was born to be closer to family in Boston. We didn't have cable or anything like that when we moved in, so we were really hungry and looking for anything to do. My ex-girlfriend Val, her sister had gone to Newbury Comics with a friend of ours. She brought back a flyer that was found inside of her bag. The flyer had the pronunciation of Byron Preiss's name written on it. The event was scheduled for that coming Thursday, November 26, 1998. The first goal was to find Byron at one of the malls listed on the flyer. The malls were listed on the right-hand side of the page. Basically, it just said that the scavenger hunt would continue on from there. It was a bifold flyer, folded horizontally. It was printed on simple white cardstock. There was a passing acknowledgement that credited Byron's team, but not much else was said on it. The main reference, though, was White Thursday, the day before Black Friday, apparently. There was also a clue in the shape of a squiggly design on the front of the flyer. We figured that he would make a speech, he would give some clues, and then he would initiate the scavenger hunt. We would all scramble to find the items before everyone else did. That's what we thought was going to happen anyway. Hunting malls for Byron. We got an early start that morning for the hunt, not knowing when or where Byron would actually be. The first thing we did is to try calling the malls ahead, but nobody even knew who Byron was. So we started traveling south from Dover, New Hampshire. I suggested that we stop at the mall in Newington just in case the mall that was listed was some kind of a play on words. The Mall of New Hampshire could be any one of the main malls along the border. We didn't find anything significant in Newington, though. That light was red for a while. Oh, rain? They didn't say anything about rain. Finding the Mall of New Hampshire. We traveled to the mall in Manchester, New Hampshire. However, it didn't have a stage, a podium, a microphone, or an audience as we expected. There were no signs of Byron there either. We had a completely different expectation of a scavenger hunt, although we did see that the Manchester Mall was selling Byron's ultimate calendar called The Secret 2. It was the 15th anniversary edition being sold for $7.50. We met a couple of players from Orlando, Florida, flying into the Manchester airport. The man introduced himself as George. He mentioned that flying into Manchester, New Hampshire was cheaper than flying directly into Boston. Then George asked us if we knew Alex J. We told him that we didn't, and we decided to part ways because we were competing. Finding the mall at Rockingham Park. Our team quickly headed out to the mall in Salem, New Hampshire. We didn't see an audience, stage, or any kind of obvious signs of a scavenger hunt. We were looking for any sign of them. We were looking up and down the aisles, each store that we thought might have anything to do with them. We kept frantically asking employees if Byron was there, but very few knew of him or the event that was scheduled. Only a few employees knew about the event that day and the significance. Some employees were merely taking part of it because they happened to be working that day on Thanksgiving Day. While we were approaching the bend of the mall, we noticed a small illusion booth just before the nativity scene. We usually crossed over to the left side of the mall at that bend, so we walked right by it, noticing that there was, some displays there. And there was a man at the end of the nativity scene hanging up white lights. The white lights are in a curly shape, just like on the flyer. The flyer also said White Thursday, so we quickly hurried on thinking that we must be at the right mall to find Byron. We walked quickly all the way to the end of the mall to find the calendar again at Spencer's. The employees knew what we were talking about this time. Lauren bought the calendar for my ex-girlfriend since it was supposed to be a surprise gift for me. However, I knew because I said that I wanted it the first time I saw it, and she knew that I wanted it. So we waited in the seating area until she came out through the glass entryway, which was diagonal on the entryway of that particular store at the time. Lauren slipped and told us later that she was not charged and rung up at the register, so she let the secret out that it was a gift. And the calendar ended up being totally free because it was a gift. It came with a receipt that said 15th anniversary on it. The anniversary refers to the Chicago find in 1983, which was being celebrated at this event. The calendar page for November has a castle on his head, and the event was in November. Finding the Salem Witch. While we were walking back, feeling defeated, not finding Byron, something caught our eye at the illusion booth as we walked by the bend again. At the booth, there was an absolutely stunning lenticular display of the Salem Witch. That's the Boston cover for the book. Her eyes stayed fixed on the viewer as you walked by, while she opens the cask. The cask had a gem on it, and her hair splayed outward in a vivid 3D animation. She then grabs the sword as the handle materializes where the bird is perched at, and she quickly hops over the globe and swings the sword like a bat hitting the ball out to left field. The animation ends with a bright light in the middle of the right-hand side of the painting at the tip of the sword, but her cuff in the shape of home base is zoomed in for emphasis. The animations were updated with additional clues in the following holiday seasons through 2001. Eventually, the display unit broke down in our area. The animation became skewed and out of perspective, and it ended abruptly before completion. The material for the display was a high-quality clear plastic with smooth, sequential transitions between image frames. It wasn't your typical fuzzy baseball card with a player swinging a bat in 3 frames. Finding Byron Preiss. That man that we saw was still putting up white lights nearby the edge of the nativity scene with his back to us. We were completely amazed by the Boston image in lenticular form. We couldn't stop taking turns seeing it over and over again. While talking about how realistic and amazing it was, like, wow, that's so amazing. That man that was nearby suddenly walked over and greeted us. It was Byron Preiss himself. He had a name tag on and it was easily recognizable. I'll never forget it because it had the letter Y and his name's very distinct. It matches his known hand stage writing. He wore glasses and he was very animated when he spoke. So he was very expressive in his pace. He was fairly tall standing next to me, and he leaned his head sort of forward towards me. He explained how the slides are fed in from the top of the display, almost like a diorama. Then he described the displays as a lenticular medium that could handle up to 50 frames of animation, which had never been done before. Byron was really proud about that as he explained how the little tubes only allow light to pass through at certain angles. He mentioned that the other paintings also have animations, so we asked if we could see those too. He hesitated for a minute, saying like it'll take a while to shut down the display and change out the slides, and so we retracted our request since we didn't want to impose on him. He also said that there's a secret revealed in every one of them. And indeed, I can definitely see that. I definitely saw it at the time, and I can definitely reproduce it now. Later on, one of the employees we met up with confirmed that Byron had said the same thing to him, referring to the 50 frames of animation. This was an important milestone in this particular form of technology and art at the same time. Finding the ultimate pinbacks. We couldn't afford to buy the lenticular image, so Val pointed out the Bantam pinback buttons on the corner of the end cap. The secret buttons were priced at $2 for $2.50. They had a white backboard, and they had to be repinned at some point because there was holes in them. She asked if I wanted them, and I said, I'll take one, and Byron interjected, take 2, they are free. The button set had a rose-colored lens to view the hidden secret by combining a color field shift and a vertical lenticular animation. One edge is bigger so that you can hold it and to know which direction to move the lens. In this case, vertically. It caused your eye to blink and like maybe your right pinky curl upwards or something. The decoder lens did not work on the calendar though, so those images weren't lenticular in that sense. The white backboard of the pinback had some writing on it. It was a German word reference, something like, what is the secret, all in one word. The pinbacks themselves were white on the backside as well, not metal. They had the date 1983 along with the company name. So an authentic pinback will clearly be labeled 1983 on the backside of it. We briefly talked about the illusion demonstration, but sadly the kiosk didn't work because the internet setup for that particular mall didn't work with it or something. Byron set the machine down in Boston where the internet worked better for that kiosk. We probably should have stayed there and talked for as long as possible in retrospect. We froze up though, and we couldn't think of any good questions to ask, so we wrapped up the conversation and headed on our way. Ironically, he was there all by himself at a simple bend in the mall on Thanksgiving Day. We went home completely flabbergasted. As soon as we got home, our friend was on the phone, wanted to know how things went. She told us that she had also read about those new old stock pins from 1983, and there was a special poster that you had to ask for. The poster was a rescan of the original media using modern technology circa 1997-98. Our friend told us that it wasn't only Byron that was present at the malls. She said that the employees of Byron's were also at various malls attending the event, perhaps in other states as well. She read that there was supposed to be origami examples of book pages, but we didn't get to see much directly at the time. So I called my friend Harlan from high school, since he was also interested in comic books and he knew about Byron Preiss. He agreed to join because he knew Byron and wanted to get a chance to get that special poster. Finding the poster and Byron's employees. We went back on the hunt to Danvers and Peabody, Massachusetts, hoping to find the poster and meet up with one of Byron's employees. We visited the Liberty Tree Mall, hoping to find that poster. You had to ask specifically for Byron's poster. It was not displayed on the shelves or advertised in any other way that I know of. That was the thing. The girls continued on to the food court while Harlan and I were in the store asking for Byron's poster. The employee answered, "Yes, we do." The price of the poster was $20, but Harlan bargained the price down to $15. They said that was the minimum price that they could sell it for. So they did have a floor price for some of these at least. I saw that there were only about 10 copies of the poster in the stack, maybe less. You might have had multiple stores have 7 to 10 copies. The run for this poster would be extremely small if 12 cities only had 10 copies each. That'd be about 120 across the United States. If multiple malls had the poster in each city, the run could be as large as 500 to 600 across the country. The poster is cropped to the edge without a border, so there's no white border around the edge. That helps you view the illusion correctly. They used a dull matte finish to prevent glare, which would ruin the illusion. It was also smaller than your standard size posters at the time that you would normally find at Spencer's or whatever. The poster was made of special paper that had anti-wrinkle properties. Harlan and I continued on to the food court to meet up with the girls. And we went by the movie theater there, the AMC. Just looked in real quick to see if there was anything interesting. There they were, already waiting at the promotional booth that Byron had set up. They introduced us to Norma Lana and her friend at the booth. They were all dressed up and very excited to see their first players. Norma has a very distinct stage voice, as I remember. Her voice works well for voiceovers and narration. My first thought that she sounded like a radio DJ or a talk show host for a radio station. Norma is actually the narrator of Illusion and helps you play through it with subtle hints along the way. This mall had all the same promotional materials at the booth, but it was bigger than the others. The headline of the promotion was a multimedia CD called Illusion. Illusion is a tool set to help reveal the secret to the treasure's location. I couldn't quite afford the CD at the time, but she sold it to me for less than its list price of $29.95. Norma told me that the Illusion CD has the secret to unlocking all of the treasures. Quote, "The illusion will unfold before your eyes." Norma's companion taught us how to fold images, but she only showed us how to do the butterfly so that she dances back and forth. The other samples didn't seem to have anything to do with the secret that she showed us. Harlan's poster got damaged while getting back into the car sometime later that night. I believe it was after we went to the next mall. I remember that it suddenly became brisk and windy that night. We were parked on a slope and the door swung shut from a gust of wind. The door crushed the edge of the rolled poster, and Harlan had been so careful with it the whole time, but it was destined to be crushed apparently. We shared a quick laugh about it when we got home because the creases and wrinkles weren't actually that bad on a dull matte finish. Most of the crinkles came out. Harlan proudly hung it up on the wall despite the minor blemish. Finding traces of more players. We came across one of the clues in Boston and followed up to find the right store at the mall. The employee said that the clue is actually for San Francisco and that 2 players had actually already traveled there from San Francisco to see this particular clue in Boston. It was the drummer boy clue with a smiley face. It's like a face on a drum that's smiling. At another mall, I was in one of the elevators and I overheard a trio of players talking about the hunt. It was a young adult couple with a younger teenage boy. The boy was talking freely about the strategy of their plans and all that. And for instance, he said, maybe we should call ahead to find Byron first before traveling to each mall. We got out of the elevator and I asked them if they were looking for Byron too, and they said, yeah. They were all from Milwaukee. The woman said to the boy, see, I told you to keep quiet. Now they know what we're doing. I didn't say anything because we already had tried calling ahead and it was a waste of time. So we just parted ways because we were also separate players at the time. After that, we met with George again and his girl. And I asked George if he got a calendar. He raised the bag and smiled. Yep, he got a calendar inside. We both thought it was pretty cool at the moment. Ironically, we found the calendar first, but he was able to view his right away because I had to wait for it as a gift to be given to me. Finding the ultimate calendar. The secret. Strike 2. 2. I didn't actually receive my calendar on my birthday that year. She waited until Christmas to give it to me as a gift. The calendar had the jousting scarecrow on the front of it with blue lightning branching downwards, and the word anniversary was written on lightning up top. The calendar was priced at $7.50, but the receipt for the calendar showed $0.00. It also said 15th anniversary on the receipt. And I kept it for a while, but it got lost when I moved out. I just left all those receipts behind. The cover of the calendar had a fancy yellow font that was double line referencing the number 2 as the word TOO. Instead, the number 2 was struck out. The title was in the center near the bottom, and other cartoonish representations of the paintings were on the backside, along with each painting shown in the back inside tiled frames. There were 2 rows, each containing 6 months. We also remember seeing a calendar at one of the Discovery Channel stores. So Spencer's and Discovery Channel store seemed to be the only ones that we knew that had the calendar in limited supply. 1999 through 2003. Finding promotional illusion items continued. For several holiday seasons after 1998, the promotional items would reappear at the malls in our area. Each new season, the displays were updated to show even more explicit clues to help players find the dig site. We repeatedly tried to buy these items from an older Japanese woman. She had a gray streak in her hair, and she'd been present during the 1998 event. We remember her as being the only constant selling these promotional items. We kept missing her though. Most of the time she wasn't attending the booth on the days that we had, enough money to splurge on decorations. And on one day, we didn't have any money while she was there, but the communication and dialogue was very limited. She didn't speak much English. Another time, she just left the booth, and the booth attendant nearby said, "Oh, she just went to the food court. She'll be right back." We waited for quite a bit, but she didn't come right back, so we left a note and with a phone number to call us back. We headed to the food court, but we didn't see her there either, and we sat down to eat, watching the crowd the whole time, but we didn't see her leave the food court. After we finished eating, we returned to the booth, but she never returned back to it. The note was still there, and she never called us back either. Through these years, we saw displays for all 12 of the images in one form or another, but they all displayed an illusion revealing a secret. Here are the top 3 in context, because these are the ones that have been found. The Boston image continues on with the Salem witch playing against herself. She is the batter and the left fielder, while you are the viewer seeing through the eyes of the pitcher, the third baseman, and the catcher. The point of view changes throughout. The ball is hit as a pop fly to left field as the point of view changes to watch her field her own ball. The ball bounces off of iron sides, which is the wall. It basically makes the wall of the softball field. The ball bounces off iron side before she turns to throw it back. The point of view changes again. It shows a close-up of her face as she rounds third base. She hesitates for a moment, but then she squints with determination and continues to run for home base. The point of view changes again to the catcher. You see the ball being thrown home as she runs toward home plate. She slides into home plate just in time and scores an inside-the-park home run. Her cuff that's shaped like home plate is displayed prominently as she zooms forward toward the viewer while sliding in. The first year we saw Chicago's Elephant Man without a castle on his head. He was only wearing a hood. Chicago was displayed in a tall shadow box. In later years, he has the full castle on his head. It creates a dramatic effect that emphasizes the fence near the treasure site. The effect is profound when you see it presented in person. Cleveland's animation showed the centaur motioning to walk or dig for grass. And then if the image is viewed at an extreme angle, you can see the body of the centaur hunch over to sit down or maybe use the bathroom. In later updates, he goes to sit down and a gem pops up from below his tail. The gem falls down to the right side of the monument below precisely where the casket was found. Finding acceptance. Over time, I became a bit disenchanted by the excessive cost to travel interstate, and also because of the perceived difficulty. It was like, how do we solve this thing without a book? I just wasn't motivated to keep hunting without a book or any solid leads. Unfortunately, years later, I discarded the calendar pages in a move, and I didn't realize the rarity at the time. They were stored in a bin of unfinished art projects and old posters that they didn't have much value themselves. But I should have never put the calendar pages together with my disposable posters. But at the time, it seemed like a nice, safe place to put them. I forgot all about The Secret 2 and moved on with life after the breakup. Revealing the secrets of the ultimate calendar. I found some of my older notes from the time period 1999 through 2003. There's a section with information about the calendar. At the time, I researched the book images online to compare them to the calendar, and I wanted to see what clues were changed and to figure out why. I wasn't interested in joining the community at the time. I mean, there wasn't much going on. That guy George that we met, he was in the forums back then, but he was denying that the whole thing even happened, and he owned a calendar himself, but he had a motivation to keep it for himself and keep it a secret. So I myself never shared the scans of the calendar image because of the license agreement. However, I'm free to talk about The Secret 2 and share my knowledge of Byron's memory. Each calendar image is actually the second frame of each one of the animations. The calendar explicitly stated that it was showing the second frame instead of the first frame as shown in the book. The order of the paintings in the calendar was different, though. Some of the clues were added to it, and some of them are omitted. It's difficult to know which one's added and which one's erased. Some of the clues were even highlighted in the calendar to emphasize their importance in some way or another. There were also 2 bonus puzzles for key-only treasures. One of the 2 bonus puzzles uses the painting for the gin, and the other uses the painting for the juggler in Milwaukee. There are 2 images in the verses that are consistent with the gin and the Milwaukee juggler. The calendar had cash prizes awarded to each puzzle. So you would mail in your solution and you would get a cash prize. The prizes range from $5,000 to $8,000 depending on the difficulty. The grand prize was $100,000 if all 12 were solved at once. This might be an indicator that something is unlockable. The calendar shared 2 months with the overlapping years. I had to rehang images back up to use the calendar. For instance, December of 99, I had to reuse the painting of Cleveland, and in January of 2000, I had to reuse the painting from Montreal. The days were numbered inside of a smaller square that was inside the large square, representing each day of the adjacent year. It was a 14-month calendar in total. There was a short preface. mentions the backstory of the secret, and it specifically said that the first printing of the book did not show certain clues that it had been approved and were intended to be seen in the book. The second printing in the calendar was meant to show the images as they were originally intended to be seen. Much clearer, lighter, and special clues were highlighted. They were rescanned from the original image media using modern technology at the time, 1997 through 98. The paintings in the book are dull and dark compared to the calendar. Extra holidays were announced in the calendar with historical factoids to make it very interesting. The molasses flood does appear in the calendar as a significant historical event. We only got to see bits and pieces of the verses, similar to the clues in the Japanese version of the book. There are two bigger clues that stick out in my memory. In the painting for Montreal, there's a block on the wall that appears to have a weakened mortar. The block was highlighted as if you could push it or pull it through. The highlighted mortar continues up the wall, zigzagging like steps, or like the wall's breaking up or something. In the Chicago painting, the fair person not only has a castle on his head, he also has a bullhorn cover on one side and a bullhorn collar on the other side. One side was red and the other side was green, as I remember. He looked pretty silly, so it's not an image you easily forget. See the Chicago painting and you can faintly see where these clues are supposed to be seen. The calendar had the following quote: "It's been 15 years since a cast was found. Will it be another 15 years before another one's found?" The backside of the calendars displayed the fair people as cartoon chimera with the members of Spider-Man the Sinister Six. The calendar images were so intriguing that I hung each of them up on the wall as the months passed by. They served as great posters and conversational pieces for the visiting guests and friends. Several friends remember seeing them on my walls, and we've talked about them. We talked about them then in detail and afterwards, about the promotional items as well. Revealing details about the second frame. Interestingly, I've rediscovered the scrambled order in my notes. I have the primer scrawled as 10, 10, 16, 10, 16, 16. By performing a simple algorithmic alternating selection, you can arrive at the order of the calendar. There is a reverse algorithm as well. If you add up the pairs of the rows by the columns, 2 by 6, you can see an interesting pattern emerge. Disclaimer, at the Boston meetup with Jason, I showed the wrong position for 2 of the images that were supposed to be swapped with 2 of the others. So in total, it was 4 of the 12 were in the wrong order, but 8 of the 12 were in the correct order, to my credit. And then here we see the calendar order in its true form. Notice that the bookends are sequential on the inside now instead of the outsides. Both January and July had a fancy letter F consistent with the Fairmont clue. July has the wings of an angel and a halo on top of her head. Hello. January has a large shrimp in the shape of Mount Royal on his chest and the crumbling highlighted mortar zigzagging down the wall, contiguous with the highlighted block. March had the juggler with an apple in one hand and a sliced peach in the other. This added more to the rebus found in the encyclopedia. It also implies that he had a sword as well. October is being struck by lightning. The armor is silver instead of gold. Chicago had a bullhorn cover and a bullhorn collar on top of his head too. His right earring formed as a symbol referencing the Elephant Man. Most of the calendar pages had reference lines. Wasn't really sure what they were for. Were they connecting parts of the painting, or were you supposed to fold it there? It didn't seem to make sense to fold it there and didn't want to crease the pages. I did make copies, but I never really figured out what those reference lines were supposed to be, but it does look similar to origami fold lines. But obviously you don't crease it, so what's the twist? In 2004, Brian Zinn, with his associate, found the cask for the Centaur in Cleveland at the Greek Cultural Garden. 2005. On March 24th, 2005, JGP, along with other illustrators and arts organizations, petitioned the U.S. Copyright Office to maintain copyright protection of orphan works on all visual artist works. On July 9th, 2005, Byron died in a car accident on Long Island. 2006. Both Byron Preiss Visual Publications and iBooks Incorporated filed bankruptcy on February 22, 2006. In 2018, I became reacquainted with The Secret after seeing an episode of Expedition Unknown. The book images are slightly different, yet nobody was talking about these alternate images. It took me a while to figure out why only a few people in the community seemed to know anything about these items related to the event. It was baffling to imagine that this chapter of The Secret could be kept secret for so long or unknown for so long. 2019. Late in 2019, Jason Krupat, along with his family, laid claim to the treasure at Langone Park. There was an episode on Expedition Unknown about the discovery in the north end of Boston. I tried to solve it myself before watching the show later that week. I also ended up in the north end. I knew that home base was part of the solution, but I didn't think that Byron would have buried it there. In other words, I didn't expect a digger to feel comfortable digging there. Perhaps some places would not care at all back then. 2023. I attended the Boston meetup with Jason Krupat in 2023. We all learned a lot that day. I arrived early that morning to take some shots of the steps at Copp's Hill Terrace. My selfie stick broke immediately as I was setting up, so I had to shoot everything by hand that day. The stairs had a lot of character. They were old and rusted adornments pointing out along the banister. Some of them are missing or broken off. It gives it a rustic feel to it. I headed directly over to home plate with my magnetic compass. I placed the compass over home plate to see if it points to the entrance of the USS Constitution, because the old sundial at Pupilo Playground pointed true north directly at the entrance of the US Constitution. It does. It points directly at the middle of Old Ironsides. We all ended up meeting at Tia's at the wharf because of the forecasted rain. Tia's is right next to Columbus Park, so it was a perfect place to start to walk north. We talked for hours, it seemed, and exchanged ideas, speculated on new developments. There were no arguments or dramatic moments. Luckily, it only sprinkled a few times, but the weather held off for the most part. Jason explained how he had laid claim to the area approximately 6 months before it was actually dug up and identified by the construction crew. They were only digging that deep at home plate because they needed to access a pipe down there. The rest of the field was only being skimmed and graded. Only 1 foot was being removed from the top, and 1 foot is not deep enough to dig up a cask. Jason got the phone call that they had found something. He rushed over to the office to see some of the pieces. Some pieces were still in the ground, so Jason joined in shortly after to unearth fragments of the cask. He posted on Facebook and reached out to Josh Gates in an email, but didn't get a response right away like he had hoped. Jason reached out to his brother that works in reality TV in Los Angeles. He told him the story and asked him to help to get hold of a Discovery Channel so they could chronicle it. His brother got in touch with an executive at Expedition Unknown, and the executive said that EU is not interested at the moment. Later that night, Jason was sharing the secret moment with his family. The phone rings and it's an LA number. Jason picks up the phone and it's Josh Gates on the line. Josh says, "I've heard you found something," and the family was so excited to hear Josh. Josh quickly headed back to the United States from where he was filming for the show. EU bumped the final episode to replace it with the Boston episode, which took about 2 to 3 weeks to put together. The treasure was unearthed in the beginning of October, and the episode aired at the end of October. I gave Jason an extra copy of my Illusion CD in hopes that he might find the special hints hidden inside. I was able to snag an extra one incomplete in a jewel case. I went into some detail and told him about my story and my perspective in the hunt. And he found it all pretty amazing, but he had no idea that even existed. I even asked him if he visited the malls in Peabody and Danvers in the late 90s, and he said that he didn't even go to the malls at all. So he had missed the opportunity to see the same clues that we saw. People from New Hampshire will travel to those malls for a wider selection and availability. Jason was very humble and thankful at the meetup. After he finished speaking, he suggested that we make the walk north to the park. We gathered together and marched over to the Columbus statue pedestal. The statue had been removed due to controversy and vandalism. Jason had used this as a starting point for his hunt because of the similarity between the statue and the woman on the front cover. He decided that it wasn't a great place to bury a treasure, though, at Columbus Park, but it was probably the starting point. Then we went on to walk along the wharfs, and Jason was undecided if the wharfs were steps or not. It was difficult to count the wharfs as we were walking through, and Jason mentions that Palancar showed the wharfs in her hair. Her hair is the waterway. Jason started talking about the old streetlights with flowers on top of them, but he forgot how it tied to his hunt. He mentioned that when it all comes together, that there's a secret that you're supposed to find. And I don't know if it's a 13th treasure or something else. Jason had said that Paul Revere's house was right near where the ballpark is, but that isn't the case. It's inline south towards Columbus Park. When we arrived at the park, Jason said that the home plate was right near the entrance of the park, but home plate was not there according to the satellite photos. That spot might be where they dug the remaining pieces out of the rubble. Ironically, as Jason asserted that it was found there at the entrance, it suddenly began raining. He said, "The gods are agreeing or disagreeing with me." We all quickly scrambled to cover our gear as a few umbrellas popped up to share the dry space. Apparently, Byron's widow said that he was a big fan of bocce balls, so that did make it into the painting. She told us that the spheres are actually meant to be bocce balls. Jason thought the pedestals at the bottom of the painting were significant, but they've been taken down since 2019. He was referring to the sundial that was pointing true north towards the entrance of the USS Constitution. Interestingly, I observed that Paul Revere's ride starts from the south heading magnetic north and intersects directly at the entrance of the USS Constitution as well. Both true north and magnetic north converge at the same exact point. All the flags are here to see. The entrance to Old Ironside's right near the area where Revere docked his boat. If you draw a line from the entrance of Columbus Park to the entrance of the USS Constitution, it crosses over home plate, Revere's house, the church where he picked up the lamp, and then over the stairs at Copp's Hill Terrace. A single line on a map encompasses the Boston puzzle. We started talking freely about doubters and people challenging the find. Jason had claimed several areas, and they're not knowing exactly which of the spots it would be. Hyperfocus Guy asked a question. "Do you know any of the people wearing the vest trying to get in?" George answered, "Yeah, I sent them. They were hoping to keep it quiet." Hyperfocus Guy then brought up the discrepancy of home plate not being where he thought it was. We all thought it was somewhere else, and then we're trying to make sense of what Jason said. Jason reasserted that home plate was near the entrance, and he said that there were 3 smaller parks in this section, but really there were only 2 there. There is another section with a 3rd field on it. His memory of the 2019 event was vague, I guess, 4 years later. It was hard to grasp at first because he must have hunted that area heavily to memorize the layout while having the stairs to his back. Jason began to go into detail about his bocce ball theory based upon what Byron's widow had said about it being an important part, especially since we were right there next to a bocce ball court. Jason noticed that regulation bocce balls are 4.2 inches in diameter and regulation bocce court is 91 feet. In the painting, the number 91 could be the image seen in the top right-hand corner of the portal's edge. The numbers to the right of the woman resemble 4 and a 2. So he also said that the bocce balls are tied to Italians and immigration. And he mentioned that Palancar flew in for part of the day, leaving that same night. Unfortunately, Jason didn't expound on that visit. That'd have been nice. However, he mentioned that he talked to one of Byron's daughters for a little bit, letting her know that they were doing a documentary and maybe she might be part of it. I asked Jason about rabbit holes and I asked if he had any advice for people that get too deep into this sometimes. We've all done it at one point. He answered, it's definitely possible to find one. You know, I think it takes a little bit of a lot of luck, a lot of timing. But yeah, I mean, not to sound too cliche, the clues are there, right? I mean, you know, I think the Cleveland guys will tell you that once they figured out, they thought that they hopped in a car and drove 15 hours to go find one. He revealed something that Byron's daughter had said on one of the episodes of Expedition Unknown. She said that when you're in the spot, you can see all of the things. Jason was asked if he had done any probing, and he shook his head no. He sent the construction worker an email with 2 or 3 locations. He was nowhere near 100%. It was in that spot. His confidence level was about 20%, I think he said. Some days he was like 2%. He was second-guessing himself to death. He kept walking by the site, looking at the construction workers, thinking, this is crazy, he can't be here. And then, there's no way, there's so many people that are looking for this, I haven't figured it out, my family hasn't figured it out in any better way than anyone else. Other days, he would walk by and say, yeah, it's right there. There's no other place that it could be. He went on to tell us about other spots that they had considered. For instance, the Charles River near Harvard was a possible spot, but it wasn't as strong as that Langone Park. Another spot was Boston University, but it was an urban campus and not too many places to bury a treasure. Fenway Park seemed too obvious, so they dismissed that. He believed that immigration did play a big role in the puzzle. He explained that the area has a lot of heavy Italian influence and it has a different sort of feel.
It's a different sort of feel.